Well, some of them, the granite in the Great Pyramid comes from more than 500 miles to the south. It is very hard for archaeologists to explain how that was done using purely leverage and mechanical advantage. You can say, oh, perhaps they built a ramp and hauled the stones up the ramp.
In 2017, scientists scanning the Great Pyramid discovered something impossible: a hidden chamber, 30 meters long, sealed inside with no entrance. Graham Hancock believes what's inside could rewrite human history, but the chamber is only the final clue. The real evidence, he claims, is carved in water-eroded stone, encoded in star alignments that shouldn't exist, and buried in a layer of cosmic debris. Here's why Hancock believes ancient Egyptians didn't build the pyramids. The pyramid anomalies. Graham Hancock has identified several red flags within the pyramids, starting with their impossible precision. The structure was built from over 2.3 million blocks, each fitted so precisely that not even a sheet of paper can slide between them. Some of these blocks weigh as much as 80 tons and were said to have been quarried from Aswan, nearly 500 miles to the south. Yet there is no surviving evidence of how these blocks were moved, lifted, or set with such perfection. The Egyptians documented nearly every aspect of daily life, yet they failed to leave a single image of how this task was accomplished, a detail Hancock finds extremely suspicious. Hancock also draws attention to the base of the pyramid, a foundation that spans 13 acres yet remains level to within less than an inch. Even with today's laser technology, achieving that degree of accuracy would be a remarkable feat. Yet according to Egyptologists, it was all done in just 20 years. Hancock breaks down the numbers. Assuming 10-hour workdays with teams working year-round, builders would need to quarry, shape, transport, and perfectly position one 2.5-ton block every 4 to 5 minutes continuously for 2 decades. No lunch breaks, no mistakes, no delays. To Hancock, the mathematics alone suggests something doesn't add up. But the pyramid's orientation is where Hancock pauses. Its sides align almost perfectly to true north, off by just 0.05 degrees, an accuracy that even modern builders struggle to match. Yet somehow, more than 5,000 years ago, it was achieved with tools and methods no one can clearly explain. The ancient Egyptians were skilled astronomers, yes, but this level of precision points to a deeper understanding of Earth's geometry itself that Hancock believes could not have been born in Egypt. But the mystery deepens when you examine what sits inside the pyramids. The corridors twist with mathematical precision, rising and falling through the stone like a designed labyrinth. At their center lies a chamber carved entirely from granite, a room with a low vibration in the air and a hum that exists even in silence. Modern tests reveal that the king's chamber resonates at measurable acoustic frequencies due to its precise dimensions and granite construction. Despite this complex precision, the interior looks almost empty. There are no inscriptions, no offerings, or even prayers to the gods. Every royal tomb of the Old Kingdom is drenched in text meant to guide a soul into the afterlife. But here, not even Pharaoh Khufu's name, except for a faint red quarry mark found in an upper cavity, a mark whose authenticity still divides researchers. Hancock believes this absence was deliberate, as if the builders were making a statement that had nothing to do with death. History tells us the Great Pyramid was built with copper chisels, wooden sledges, and rope, the ordinary instruments of the Bronze Age. Yet those tools cannot cut granite effectively. Modern stonemasons have tried to replicate the work and failed, unable to match the clean, symmetrical precision found in Giza's stone blocks. The surfaces are so finely shaped they appear machined, not hand-cut. And if such craftsmanship was truly achieved with primitive tools, Hancock asks, where is the evidence? There is, however, one fragment from the ancient record, a single clue, or perhaps a distraction. The Mirror Papyrus, unearthed in 2013, is the oldest written document ever found in Egypt. It's a work log from an official named Merer, which describes transporting casing stones from Tura to Giza, essentially a delivery manifest. It records logistics but reveals nothing about the pyramid's design, engineering, or the precision required to achieve what still stands today. For Hancock, it's like finding a shipping receipt for parts and claiming it explains how to build a computer. Hancock's geological evidence. Graham Hancock believes the pyramids of Giza are the inheritance of a civilization far older, far more advanced, and now largely lost to time. Hancock argues that thousands of years before Khufu's reign, a forgotten culture possessed astonishing mastery of astronomy, geometry, and engineering that would later trickle down to the Egyptians in fragmentary form. His geological evidence centers on the Sphinx, not the pyramids themselves. In the early 1990s, Boston University geologist Dr. Robert Schoch examined the Sphinx enclosure and found something that challenged Egyptology at its core. The limestone walls surrounding the monument were cut with deep vertical fissures and wave-like patterns, erosion that Schoch concluded could only be caused by heavy, sustained rainfall, not wind or sand. Egypt hasn't experienced such rainfall since approximately 7000 BCE, thousands of years before the pharaohs. But Schoch's analysis opened the door to rethinking all of Giza. The nearby valley and Sphinx temples, hewn from the same bedrock as the Sphinx itself, bear the same deep, water-worn patterns of erosion. If these monuments once formed a unified complex, Hancock argues, they may all trace back to the same astonishingly ancient origin. The pyramids, rising just beyond them and built from the same kind of limestone, stand close enough to suggest a possible connection. However, this theory remains speculative and widely disputed among Egyptologists who insist that the erosion was caused by wind and sand. But Hancock believes the stones are only the first clue. The trail continues in the sky, where the next piece of evidence is written among the stars. Astronomical evidence. Hancock strongly believes that the accepted timeline, which places the Great Pyramid around 2,560 years before Christ, is nothing but an illusion. To prove this, he points at another clue hidden inside the pyramid itself, the King's Chamber, where two narrow shafts rise upward at precise angles, one aligning with the belt of Orion, the other with the star Sirius. These are not random air vents. Hancock believes they were intentionally designed to target specific stars during certain epochs, forming an astronomical signature left by builders who wanted to mark their place in the cosmos. Such precision would have required an exact knowledge of the heavens, the slow precession of the equinoxes, the cycles of stars, and the rhythm of the night sky over tens of thousands of years. Hancock contends that this level of astronomical mastery doesn't fit within Egypt's fourth dynasty. Researcher Robert Bauval's findings, known as the Orion correlation theory, emerging in the mid-1990s, lend weight to Hancock's argument. Bauval proposed that the layout of the three Great Pyramids was no accident. When plotted from above, their alignment mirrors the pattern of Orion's belt, with one crucial deviation. The smallest pyramid, that of Pharaoh Menkore, sits slightly askew, just as Mintaka, the faintest star, is offset from the line formed by Alnitak and Alnilam. The correspondence was too exact, Bauval argued, to be coincidence. The largest pyramid, belonging to Khufu, aligned with Alnitak, the brightest star, while the central pyramid, Pharaoh Khafre's, matched Alnilam. Together, they formed a terrestrial map of the heavens. But what Bauval uncovered next would push the theory far beyond coincidence. When he projected the sky backward using astronomical software, he found that the pyramid layout only matched Orion's belt perfectly, as it appeared around 10,500 years before Christ, not during the era Egyptologists claim they were built. At that earlier date, Orion would have hung directly above the Giza Plateau at the lowest point of its celestial cycle, a moment ancient skywatchers may have seen as the rebirth of the heavens. In Egyptian mythology, Orion was linked with Osiris, the god of resurrection and cosmic balance. Bauval argued that the pyramid's alignment was sacred geometry and a deliberate attempt to mirror the heavens on Earth. The Nile itself, flowing just east of the pyramids, mirrors the Milky Way, forming a terrestrial counterpart to the celestial river that winds across the heavens. Even more striking is how the pyramid's internal structure ties into this stellar connection. The southern shaft from the King's Chamber points directly to Alnitak, the brightest star in Orion's belt, while the northern shaft aligns with Thuban, the pole star, as it appeared 2,500 years before the Common Era. This dual targeting, Hancock notes, indicates a complex understanding of multiple epochs, a design meant to preserve astronomical data across ages. The builders, whoever they were, seem to understand that the Earth's axis slowly wobbles in a cycle that takes roughly 26,000 years to complete. This slow drift, called the precession of the equinoxes, causes the stars to shift position across the ages. Yet history tells us this motion wasn't discovered until the Greek astronomer Hipparchus identified it in the 2nd century before Christ. So how could the pyramids' builders have encoded a phenomenon modern science only recognized millennia later? Either history is missing a chapter, or someone was watching the skies long before we thought. To Hancock, this is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that the pyramids' builders inherited a body of advanced astronomical knowledge from a civilization far older than Egypt, a culture that understood the long cycles of the heavens and sought to preserve that understanding through architecture. Hancock expands Bauval's findings beyond Egypt. Across the world, he identifies ancient monuments that, in his view, display the same celestial fingerprint, structures whose alignments appear to track specific constellations or equinox events. In Mexico, Hancock believes the Avenue of the Dead at Teotihuacan aligns with the setting of Orion's belt, mirroring the Giza pattern across an ocean. In Cambodia, he proposes that the temples of Angkor Wat are laid out to reflect the constellation Draco and the positions of the solstices, encoding the movements of the northern sky. And in England, he suggests that Stonehenge's precise alignment with the solstitial sunrise and sunset may mark not just the seasons, but the slow drift of precession itself. While these connections remain speculative and are based on hypotheses rather than established archaeological consensus, Hancock sees them as evidence of a network of cosmic knowledge dispersed across continents by the survivors of a vanished world. But he doesn't just theorize. He also points to evidence of a cataclysm so vast, it may have wiped their civilization from history and buried its memory beneath the sands of time. The Younger Dryas Impact. In 2007, a group of scientists proposed the Younger Dryas Impact hypothesis, a fragmented comet or asteroid that broke apart in Earth's atmosphere, raining fire over vast regions of the planet. Wildfires raged, soot darkened the skies, and global temperatures plunged within months, throwing the planet back into near glacial conditions for more than 1,000 years. Hancock believes this mysterious climate anomaly marked the end of the forgotten civilization that may have built the pyramids. The Younger Dryas Impact hypothesis remains scientifically debated. While evidence of nanodiamonds and impact materials has been found at multiple sites, some geologists argue alternative explanations exist. But Hancock focuses on what's undisputed. Something caused a sudden, severe climate shift 12,800 years ago that fundamentally disrupted human civilization. Across the continents, the traces of this event still linger in the soil. Geologists have identified a thin, dark layer of sediment known as the black mat that appears at more than 50 archaeological sites across North America and beyond, separating a world of Ice Age animals and early hunter-gatherers from the barren landscape that followed. Within this layer, scientists have found nanodiamonds, iridium-rich particles, and tiny glassy spheres called microspherules, which are only formed under extreme heat and pressure, the kind produced by a cosmic impact. Materials like melt glass, shocked quartz, and traces of high-temperature carbon further suggest that the Earth endured explosions powerful enough to vaporize rock and melt sand. Researchers believe the aftermath was catastrophic. Evidence suggests that the Clovis culture, one of the earliest known societies in North America, vanished from the archaeological record almost overnight. Vast herds of mammoths, giant sloths, and saber-toothed cats disappeared, along with more than 70% of the continent's large mammals. Rivers changed course, coastlines shifted, and the climate plunged into an icy grip that lasted more than a millennium. Humanity itself was forced into retreat, surviving in scattered refuges while the old world froze beneath storms of ash and snow. Yet not everyone perished. Hancock strongly believes some survivors lived to pass on fragments of their knowledge into the next age in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Mesoamerica. He points to Gobekli Tepe as one of his strongest pieces of evidence. Discovered in 1994 by German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, its construction dates back over 11,000 years, twice as old as Stonehenge, older than Mesopotamia's first cities, and far older than Egypt's pyramids. But Hancock isn't just focused on when it was built. He's asking who built it and what it implies. Archaeologists agree that the builders were hunter-gatherers, who had no farms, pottery, metal tools, or permanent villages. Yet somehow they carved 20-ton limestone pillars that stand like a giant T in stylized human forms with faintly etched arms, hands, and belts. Around them, intricate carvings of foxes, vultures, scorpions, snakes, and abstract symbols fill the stone faces with meaning no one fully understands. The pillars stand in perfect geometry and are aligned to key points on the horizon. Some researchers believe these alignments track constellations or solstice events, hinting at a deep, deliberate knowledge of the stars. There's also the mystery of its burial. Thousands of tons of soil were deliberately packed around Gobekli Tepe, preserving it with unmistakable precision. Hancock believes no natural force did this. Someone entombed it on purpose as an act of preservation against catastrophe. But what makes Gobekli Tepe truly unsettling is its age. It was built at the exact moment the Younger Dryas ended. Hancock insists that timing is no coincidence. Yet even this site, he says, may not be the oldest trace of that lost world. Deep within the Great Pyramid itself, one final clue has been uncovered. The hidden void. In 2017, the Scan Pyramids project used advanced muon tomography, a form of cosmic ray imaging, to peer inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu without drilling or damaging the structure. What they found stunned the scientific community. A hidden chamber, roughly 30 meters long, lying directly above the Grand Gallery. The cavity was so large it could fit a small passenger plane. Yet what it was and why it existed remains an unanswered mystery. The chamber sits sealed within the pyramid's core, perfectly aligned along its internal axis, with no entrances, visible passages, or inscriptions to suggest a known purpose. But the precision of its placement, balanced between the king's and queen's chambers, implies deliberate intent rather than a structural accident. Egyptologists quickly proposed that the void might serve as a relieving cavity, a hollow space meant to reduce pressure on the chambers below. But the explanation doesn't quite fit. The known relieving chambers above the king's chamber are small, stacked, and crudely functional, nothing like the vast, symmetrical, and completely isolated space detected here. Some researchers believe this chamber may have been built to safeguard something beyond reach. Its isolation could also signify that it was never meant to be entered by humans. But what makes it more striking is the precision of its construction. Even with modern tools, engineers note that constructing a perfectly balanced cavity deep within the pyramid, invisible from the surface and symmetrically aligned with its interior spaces, would require knowledge of internal mapping and load distribution that surpasses the tools of the Fourth Dynasty. More recently, ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys around the Giza Plateau have detected additional L-shaped anomalies beneath the pyramid complex. These subsurface formations suggest possible tunnels or chambers extending from the pyramid's base toward the plateau's edge, parts of an architectural plan that remain completely unmapped. The data also shows that these anomalies converge along the same vertical axis as the hidden void above the king's chamber, suggesting an interconnected system running from deep below ground to high within the structure. For Hancock, this is the smoking gun. If the pyramid was simply Khufu's tomb, why build a massive sealed chamber that can't be accessed? Why create underground passages that serve no burial function? His theory: the void is a vault built by survivors of the Younger Dryas to preserve knowledge, astronomical calculations, engineering principles, and mathematical formulas, knowledge of a civilization that knew catastrophe was coming. The pyramid wasn't built to honor a pharaoh. It was built to outlast the end of the world and carry knowledge into the next age. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.